The laptop was warm. Too warm. And the moment Miriam opened it, her scream shook the whole house. Her perfect son had been living a life she never imagined. The silence in the house had always been Miriam's pride. While other homes echoed with shouting children, quarreling siblings, and banging doors, hers was calm, controlled, almost sterile. Everything had its place. Everything was perfect. And so was her son, Ethan. Or so she believed. At 15, Ethan was the kind of boy every parent dreamed of, well-mannered, intelligent, clean, respectful, quiet. Miriam would often sit at women's conferences and give testimony about how well she had raised him. "I taught him boundaries from the start," she'd say confidently. "He doesn't hang out with riffraff. He reads. He codes. He's ahead of his time." Truthfully, Ethan had never known anything different. He was born into structure. From his toddler years, he was locked indoors unless escorted. He had no cousins he played with. No best friends he confided in. No birthdays celebrated outside the walls of their polished home. If he needed anything, it was delivered. Clothes, food, games, tutors, everything brought to him like royalty. When he once said he wanted to go to the estate playground to ride bikes with some boys, Miriam replied, "You don't need to mix with everybody. You're not like them. If you want a bike, I'll get you a better one, and you'll ride it in the backyard." And she did. She got him a mountain bike with Bluetooth and LED lights. He rode it alone, while the boys outside laughed together under the sun. At school, Ethan didn't talk much. He wasn't bullied, he was respected for his gadgets and his mind, but he had no tribe. No real connections. When school closed, he went straight home. Always. By the time he was 14, he had everything. A powerful MacBook, a phone better than his teacher's, a private Netflix account, and a lock on his door. Privacy is important at that age, Miriam told herself. But tonight, this very night, something felt off. It began with something so small. Her phone died, and she needed to send an urgent document to her boss. She could have used the charger, but instinct made her glance at the silver MacBook glowing quietly on the dining table. It was Ethan's. She told herself it would only take a minute. The moment she placed her fingers on it, she felt the warmth. It hadn't been idle. Someone had used it recently. She opened it. No password. She clicked Safari. She expected a school site. Maybe a YouTube tab open. But the moment the browser loaded, her heart dropped. It wasn't a website. It was a chat room. Whisper Talk. A chat app she'd never seen before. A message was already blinking on screen. "Babe, don't forget the pics we took. You looked hot in that red shirt. Face blowing a kiss, I can't wait for our next sleepover." Miriam's heart stuttered. She opened the app fully. Hundreds of messages. Late night texts. Deleted chats. Emojis. Nicknames. Pet names. Photos. Her hand reached to her mouth as if to hold in a scream. The Ethan she saw in those photos was someone she didn't recognize. In one, he was half naked, standing in front of a hotel mirror, with a caption, "Wish you were here." In another, he was in a man's lap, the older man holding him by the waist, both smiling. There were even screenshots of video calls, some blurry, some explicit. She felt like she couldn't breathe. Her chest tightened. Tears rushed to her eyes, but her mind refused to believe what it was seeing. Was this a prank? Was he hacked? Was this some sort of stupid game? She looked for clues. Names. Places. Timestamps. Everything was real. There were even money transfers, the man sending Ethan money through M-Pesa and PayPal, with messages like 4-hour night out and buy yourself something sexy. Miriam stood up. Her knees were shaking. All this had been happening in her house? Under her roof? A home she thought was the safest place on earth. She remembered all the times she praised him in public, All the other children she looked down on, thinking they were wild and spoiled. How ironic. She had been raising a secret. That moment, that split second, broke something inside her. When Ethan finally walked in around 9 p.m., fresh from group studies, he looked normal. Casual. He wore joggers and a hoodie, humming a song with his earphones plugged into one ear. He didn't notice her swollen eyes or the laptop now quietly closed. "Hey Mom," he said lightly. "We finished a bit late. Mr. Kelvin dropped me." She nodded slowly. He walked past her, the scent of deodorant still hanging in the air. She opened her mouth to speak, but closed it. Instead, she sat in the same chair for hours. Her home was no longer a sanctuary. It was a mystery. And her son was a stranger. But this was just the beginning. She hadn't even asked the question yet that would haunt her later. What if something worse had already happened? "You think you've given me everything, but have you ever given me you?" The air was heavy the next morning. Miriam stood at the kitchen counter, staring blankly at the boiling kettle. The water had boiled 3 times already, whistling so loudly it should have woken the whole estate. But she hadn't moved. Her hand gripped the edge of the sink so tightly, her knuckles turned white. She hadn't slept all night. How could she? Her son, the boy she had built her entire life around, was hiding a world so deep, so dark, and so secret that she now questioned if she even knew him at all. She heard the door creak and footsteps down the hallway. Ethan, wearing his Marvel pajama bottoms, yawned as he dragged himself into the kitchen. His hair was messy, and his eyes half closed. "Morning, Mum," he mumbled. She turned slowly. Something inside her cracked. He looked like a little boy again, the same child she used to rock on her chest, sing lullabies to, and read bedtime stories every Sunday evening before her work life got too busy. He went to the fridge and grabbed a juice box. "You didn't sleep?" he asked casually, sipping. Miriam didn't answer. "Is something wrong?" he asked, now slightly more alert. "You look weird." Miriam swallowed the pain in her throat. She couldn't fake it. She turned around and looked him in the eye. "Ethan," she said, "we need to talk." The juice box paused midair. "What's going on?" Miriam took a deep breath and walked to the dining table. She picked up the laptop, the same one she had used the night before, and placed it between them. Ethan's eyes widened slightly. "I opened this last night," she said slowly. His hand trembled. He didn't move. He didn't speak. But in that second, everything changed. "I saw everything," she whispered. "The chats. The photos. The messages. The men." His lips parted but no sound came out. There was a long, brutal silence. Then Ethan let out a weak laugh, almost as if trying to convince himself it wasn't real. "You shouldn't have gone through my stuff. You shouldn't be talking to adult strangers on the internet," she snapped, her voice rising. "Ethan, they're men. They're grown men, touching you, sending you money. What is this? What's going on with you?" He flinched. "Are you being abused?" she asked, softer now, heart thudding against her chest. "Has someone forced you into this? Is someone threatening you? Tell me." Ethan's mouth quivered. For a moment, she saw the child in him again. Not a secretive, strange teenager, just a broken boy who had waited too long for this moment. "No one forced me," he said quietly. Miriam blinked. "What?" "I wasn't abused. I did it all myself." "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do something like this, Ethan? Why didn't you come to me? Why didn't you talk to me?" He stared at the table. Tears welled in his eyes. "Because you don't talk to me either." Her body went cold. "You give me everything, Mum," he said bitterly. "You buy me phones, laptops, shoes, whatever I ask for. But when was the last time you sat down and asked how I'm really doing? You're always at work." Even when you're home, you're not really here. He wiped his face with the sleeve of his hoodie. I sit in that room every day, alone. You say it's for my safety, but it's like I'm in prison. You don't let me out, don't let me see people, don't let me feel anything. And then the internet was just there. Waiting. Miriam's eyes stung. I didn't plan for it, Ethan said shakily. It started with a comment. Then a message. Then, attention. Someone called me cute. Someone told me I mattered. They saw me, Mum. When you didn't. Don't say that, Miriam whispered, voice breaking. But it's true, he said. You think you've given me everything, but have you ever given me you? Miriam reached for his hand, but he pulled away. I was scared to tell you. I thought you'd hate me. That you'd think I'm disgusting. I don't, she said. Ethan, I don't hate you. I'm just shocked. Hurt. Lost. I thought I was protecting you. No, he said. You were controlling me. You built me this golden cage and called it love. Miriam crumbled. She sank into the chair beside him, covering her face. I'm sorry, she whispered, sobbing. I'm so sorry. The boy beside her wiped his tears in silence. Neither of them spoke for a while. The only sound was the quiet dripping of a leaking tap in the sink and the distant noise of morning birds. And then Miriam said something she had never said before, something so raw it pierced the walls between them. I don't know how to fix this, Ethan. But I'm going to try. If you'll let me. Ethan looked at her. Really looked at her. For the first time in years, he saw a mother who wasn't strong, rich, or perfect, just broken. Just trying. Okay, he whispered. And for the first time in a long time, they sat at the table, together. Miriam was still trying to breathe when the security guard called her phone. Madam, he said. There's a man at the gate, and he says he knows your son. It had been 4 days since the confrontation. 4 days of sleepless nights, awkward silences, and tear-stained pillows. Ethan had stopped locking his door. Not because he felt safe, but because Miriam had finally started checking in. She knocked softly each morning, brought him breakfast, and sat in silence with him even when they had nothing to say. She canceled meetings, rescheduled presentations, and told her boss she needed family time. She wasn't perfect at it, she still looked at him with pain in her eyes, like she was searching for the little boy she lost somewhere along the way, but she was trying. And for Ethan, that was new. They were healing in small steps. Until Thursday afternoon. It was 2:47 p.m. Miriam had just finished a long call with a therapist she found online, someone trained in teenage counseling and digital behavior. She was preparing to drive Ethan for his first session when her phone rang. It was the estate's security desk. Hello, madam, the guard said politely. You have a visitor at the gate. He says he knows your son. Her stomach tightened. Who is it? She asked, already walking to the window. He said his name is Mr. Felix. He's well dressed. Says he's here to pick Ethan. Miriam froze. What? Her voice thundered through the phone. He's here to do what? The guard hesitated. Pick Ethan. They apparently had plans. Do not let him in. I'm coming. She hung up and bolted out of the house like fire had grabbed her ankles. Ethan, hearing the chaos, rushed out of his room. What's going on? He asked. There's a man at the gate, one of the men from your chats, she screamed. You gave him our address? Ethan's face went pale. I didn't think he'd come, he muttered. He kept asking. He said he just wanted to say hi. Are you mad? Do you know how dangerous that is? Miriam didn't wait for an answer. She jumped into her car and sped to the estate's main gate. When she arrived, she saw him, a man in his late 40s, wearing a sharp suit, sunglasses, and a smirk that made her blood boil. He looked too confident. Madam, he greeted her coolly as she stepped out of her car. You must be Ethan's mother. You're as beautiful as he said. She almost slapped him. How dare you come here, she hissed. He shrugged. We just wanted to hang out. No harm. He's a child, she shouted. A child? Do you even know what that means? Do you know what you're doing is a crime? The guard's eyes widened. Felix laughed softly. Madam, your son is not innocent. He came to me willingly. He knew what he was doing. Maybe you should ask yourself why he came to me in the first place. Something in her chest cracked. He was right, in a twisted, evil way. Ethan had sought this man. Found him. Engaged him. She had left her son so lonely that predators looked like comfort. She stepped closer. If you ever text, call, or come near my son again, I swear on everything I own, I will finish you. Legally. Spiritually. Publicly. Felix chuckled. Relax, madam. You've got quite the temper. No wonder he prefers someone who listens. She snapped. The guard had to pull her back before she launched at him. Get him out, she screamed. Now. Felix walked away slowly, like he had won. Like she had no power. But as his car drove off, Miriam stood shaking. Not with fear. But with fury. She had to do more. This wasn't just about Ethan anymore. It was about the hundreds of boys like him, hidden behind screens, locked in bedrooms, raising themselves in silence while their parents chased money and respect. And it was about the grown men who lurked in shadows, waiting to be loved by children. When she got home, Ethan was sitting on the couch, eyes red. I didn't think he'd come, he said again. Miriam didn't yell. She sat beside him. I know, she whispered. But you gave him a door. And now? I have to close it. What do you mean? I'm reporting him. I'm reporting all of them. And we're getting you help. Real help. I'm not losing you, Ethan. Not to the world. Not to these people. Not to shame. He looked at her with raw eyes. You still love me? She pulled him into her arms. I love you even when I don't understand you. For the first time, Ethan cried. Loud, heavy sobs that shook his whole body. And Miriam held him like she should have held him all those years ago. Because it was no longer about being the perfect parent. It was about showing up now, before it was too late. The principal's words echoed in her head like a curse. Mrs. Miriam, we've actually been trying to reach you for weeks. There's something disturbing about Ethan you need to see. The house was finally quiet. After the confrontation with Felix, Ethan had agreed to delete all his apps and hand over his devices temporarily. He had even agreed to attend counseling, and though the sessions were tense and quiet, it was a start. But Miriam couldn't rest. Something inside her was still unsettled. Like a missing puzzle piece sat just beneath the surface of everything she'd uncovered, and she hadn't reached it yet. Then came the email. It arrived on a Friday morning, 9:06 a.m. sharp. Subject line. Urgent, regarding Ethan Omondi, attendance and behavior concern. Miriam's heart skipped. She opened it, and there it was, a formal invitation from the school principal asking her to come in that afternoon. Not just for a routine check-in, but for a disciplinary review. She called them immediately. Her hands were shaking. This is Mrs. Omondi, Ethan's mother. I just received an email about a concern? Yes, madam, the receptionist replied in a stiff voice. Mr. Alfred would like to speak with you privately. He says it's better in person. No explanation. No hints. Just tension. Miriam canceled her work calls and left the house. The school hadn't changed much, still clean, still impressive, still proud of their reputation. A few parents greeted her with polite smiles as she walked past, but she noticed something different in their eyes today. Pity. Or was it judgment? At the reception, she was escorted into the principal's office immediately. Mr. Alfred, a tall, strict-looking man in his 50s, stood up when she entered and shook her hand. "Mrs. Miriam," he began, "thank you for coming on short notice." "What is this about?" she asked, going straight to the point. He sighed and opened a file. "First of all, I want to say that Ethan is a brilliant student. Very gifted. But over the past 2 terms, we've observed changes in his behavior, his appearance, his language." Miriam frowned. "Changes? Why wasn't I informed?" "We tried," he said gently. "Several emails. But you were always unreachable. Your secretary responded most of the time." Miriam's face dropped. I've been busy," she murmured. He nodded. "Understandable. But what we're dealing with now is beyond grades or missed classes. We believe Ethan has been engaging with other male students inappropriately. We caught him with a boy in the bathroom. The room spun." "What?" "They claimed it was a dare, but the messages on the school computer say otherwise. We've confiscated Ethan's digital locker. There are emails. Exchanges. Explicit content." Miriam's lips trembled. No. This can't be happening." Mr. Alfred turned his computer screen to face her. There they were, screenshots. Messages. Ethan bragging to a classmate about his older boyfriends. Suggestive photos sent from the school Wi-Fi. A message saying, "Bet you don't have the guts to kiss him like I did. Grow up." Her hand flew to her mouth. "This is not just about rules anymore," Mr. Alfred said softly. "It's about safety, influence, and Ethan's well-being." Miriam's world was crumbling faster than she could rebuild it. She nodded slowly. "What happens now?" "We're considering suspension. But more importantly, he needs help. Not punishment. Real intervention." Miriam stood. Her knees almost failed her. "Can I take those files with me?" "Of course." As she walked out, she felt the stares again, sharper this time. She could almost hear the whispers. "That's the woman whose son was caught. I heard he was meeting strange men too. Imagine, with all that money, and yet." She drove home in silence. When she got there, Ethan was in the living room, watching a documentary with a notebook in his lap. "Hey," he said softly. "How was the meeting?" She dropped the files on the table. His face changed. "You knew, didn't you?" she asked quietly. "You knew I'd find out sooner or later." He nodded slowly. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," he whispered. I wanted to be seen. And at school, I was the weird kid. The soft one. The one who never joined football or hung out. When I found someone like me, it felt safe." Miriam sat beside him. "I don't hate you," she said. "But I'm scared. Because I don't know what else is hiding. What else you've been through. What you've become." He blinked back tears. "You're still here, though." "I won't leave," she whispered. "Even if the whole world points fingers. I'm not going anywhere." Then her phone buzzed. A new message. From an unsaved number. She opened it. "Hi Miriam. You don't know me. But I'm one of the men your son was chatting with. I didn't know he was 15. We need to talk. In private." Miriam's hands dropped the phone. It had just begun. Miriam expected a predator. But what she got was a mirror. A reminder of how far a parent's silence can go before it turns into tragedy. It was 8:12 p.m. Ethan was asleep, finally, after a long day of therapy and difficult conversations. Miriam sat at the edge of her bed, phone in hand, staring at the message again. "Hi Miriam. You don't know me. But I'm one of the men your son was chatting with. I didn't know he was 15. We need to talk. In private. She didn't reply for hours. She didn't know what scared her more, what this man might say, or what he might confirm. But at 11:47 p.m., she sent a simple message. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. Java, Garden Mall. Come alone. The man walked in exactly at 10:01 a.m. He didn't look how she imagined. No creepy smile, no sinister aura. He was clean-cut, wearing glasses and a soft blue shirt. Maybe early 30s. He ordered tea. Quietly. Miriam stared at him like he was a ticking bomb. He began softly. I want to start by saying I'm not here to defend myself. I know how it looks. What it is. I didn't know your son's age. He never said. Do you expect me to believe that? She snapped, voice tight with pain. He sighed. I get it. I would react the same. But I swear, I thought he was older. 18, 19. Maybe 20. The way he spoke, the pictures, the way he carried himself. He paused. Looked her dead in the eye. He didn't sound like a child trying something new. He sounded like someone who had done this before. Like someone who was introduced to it. By someone older. Miriam's body went cold. What are you saying? I've been in this dark online space for years. I know when a kid is exploring. And I know when a kid has been taught. Your son, he's been taught. The room spun again. No, she whispered. No. He said he found it himself. Through chats, apps, online. Maybe. But someone had already opened the door for him, long before me. And then he said it. I didn't touch your son. But someone did. Before all this started. Miriam couldn't breathe. Suddenly, everything came rushing back. The way Ethan flinched when people hugged him. His silence about certain school events. The babysitter he once cried about, the one she dismissed because boys don't get abused. Tears blurred her vision. What do I do? She whispered. Believe him, the man said. If he ever tells you the truth, believe him. Don't look away. And don't wait. He stood. I'm not asking for forgiveness. Just help him. Before the internet finishes what someone else started. And then he left. That night, Miriam knocked on Ethan's door. He looked up from his bed, expression guarded. Hey. She walked in slowly. Can I ask you something? And will you promise to be honest? He hesitated, then nodded. Before all of this, before the chats, the photos, the men, did someone ever hurt you? His face broke. Tears formed before words. His lips trembled. His body went stiff. And then, in a broken voice, he whispered. Yes. When I was 9. One of your friends. From work. He used to come over when you worked late. Miriam collapsed into the chair beside him. I told you once, he said through tears. But you were on a call. You told me not to lie. And I believed maybe I imagined it. Miriam sobbed. Loudly. From her stomach. From her bones. I'm sorry, she cried. I failed you. I failed you. Ethan leaned against her, and for the first time in years, they didn't feel like strangers. They felt like a mother and son, wounded, but holding on. Miriam stood on a stage at a parenting conference. She wasn't dressed in power suits anymore. No heels. Just a plain dress, simple earrings, and eyes that had seen too much. She told their story, every detail. The gadgets. The locked door. The chats. The predator. The abuse. The denial. The pain. But she ended with this. You can give your children everything, and still give them nothing. I lost my son in the silence of a busy schedule. I got him back by learning to sit in his pain, not fix it. Just sit there. This is not a story of shame. It's a warning. Don't wait for the laptop to reveal the truth. Be present. Be aware. Or the world will raise your child for you. Tears filled the room. Some stood to clap. Some sat to cry. And Ethan, now 16, watched from the front row, healing, slowly, because this time, he wasn't healing alone. This story teaches that being present is more powerful than providing. You can give your child everything, gadgets, comfort, luxury, and still lose them if you're not emotionally available. Silence doesn't equal safety. Real parenting means listening, noticing, and creating space for your child to open up. Because if you don't pay attention, someone else will, and not everyone out there has good intentions.